Hey guys, Discoria here. Welcome to another new video. Today's going to be the face punching guide for the newest Void battle, Corrupt Jeanne d'Arc. Void Jeanne d'Arc Strike. She exists in so many alters in so many games. I can barely keep it straight. So today what I want to go through is the fight mechanics, picking a proper unit to face the fight with, anything that a newer player or even maybe a more experienced player might want to know to take on this fight. So let's jump right to the teams. I've pre-prepared the unit that I'm going to use for this fight. Now, actually, before I show you the team, I'm going to bring you into the battle and look at the details of the fight, because that outlines some important information that you should definitely look at before you start the fight. Obviously, this dragon is a light type, which means you're going to want to use Dark Adventurers for the elemental type. Now, in addition to that, she inflicts blind on one of her attacks, which means if you don't have a blind resist unit, it's going to significantly decrease the damage output of your unit. What does that mean? You're probably going to want to use a unit that is immune to blind unless you are extremely skilled at dodging AoEs, because that's the majority of this fight. I've seen a couple clears already with people just managing to avoid the AoEs with a non-blind unit, but if you're just learning the fight, your teammates will appreciate if you use a immune to blindness unit. That's probably your best bet. There's a couple units that are immune to blind in the game, but funnily enough, no 5-stars that are immune to blind. You can create a resistance to blindness with Worm Prince, which I'll get into in a minute. But again, there's some of the 4-star units that I might recommend are Berserker or Kleinman. Those both have blind resist, so those would probably be the ones that I would recommend. If you've got a super souped up 5-star dark character with a 5.3 tier dark elemental weapon, chances are you can take on the fight with little difficulty, even if you're not blind resistant. That's what I've found in my experience, but for those learning the fight, I'd probably stick with a Kleinman or a Berserker. Or any of the 3-stars that have a decent amount of blind resist. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I know there are some. So, you should always read through the description here, which I did first, because it goes over some pretty useful information. She's got a couple of attacks, Unholy Dominion and Lightning Salvo. The Unholy Dominion, basically there's just bolts of lightning that run between banners that she summons in the fight. It's going to be easier to point it out when I actually go into the fight, so I won't try and describe the attack, but lots of different attacks, and her special abilities are not they're a little bit annoying. So she's got Divine Protection, which stops her overdrive gauge from decreasing, and her defense goes way up, and Dragon Delay, which significantly depletes your dragon gauge, which means you're probably going to want to you want to be aware that you're going to be inflicting the majority of your damage with your character rather than with your dragon. So those are some of the outlines of her abilities. I talked about you're going to want a unit immune to blind. She is weak to poison and burn, so, those are just extras. So you are probably going to, if you're not using a souped-up 5-star and you don't have a lot of high-level dojos, high-level elemental altars, a high facility level to boost your souped-up 5-star character that's not resistant to blind, you're going to want a strong, fully upgraded 4-star character. You don't need to max out mana circles. That's not what I mean. You're going to want to make sure their level is maxed out. You're going to want to have decent mana circles. You should be able to get to 40 without too much resource investment. And you're going to want to equip it with a void weapon. These void weapons, it gives you examples of the void weapons that are available, that are going to make it a lot easier to get Void Jeanne into the break state. So if you don't have a 5.3 tier elemental dark weapon, you're probably going to want to try and craft an elemental void weapon to take her on with. That would be my suggestion. I'm sure it's anything is doable without any of these things. The things that I'm just suggesting, they just make the fight easier. That's all. So, let's go over to teams now. Like I said, I have a souped up Veronica, a 5-star character that was released in a limited run a couple months ago in a Fire Emblem Heroes crossover. So I'm going to use her. She's, like I said, pretty souped up. She's not a blind resist unit, but I haven't had any problems beating the fight. And I haven't really had blind inflicted on me too often yet. So I'm going to show you the setup that I've been using for her, and it works just fine, but I'll show some other setups as well that I think would probably be good if you don't have a super souped up 5-star dark character. So if you go into the important part of this, obviously I'm rocking the 5.3 tier Dark Weapon Underworld Despair, and I'm also rocking a maximum unbound 4-star Juggernaut, which a lot of experienced players or longtime players have unbound 4-star dragons by now, but if you don't, a good, well, at least, a dragon that you could substitute that was free and given out widely was Phantom, which is also a strength dragon, gives 35% strength, so 10% lower than Juggernaut, but nothing to scoff at. Like the advice said before, you may not have a really good opportunity to use your dragon anyways, so because of the depleted dragon gauge, so you're gonna want the effect, the plus 35% strength. So that's what I would suggest. You could also go the other way and pick a dragon for survivability, but I haven't tested that yet, so I don't want to speak to the viability of that. I'm going to stick with the combination I have right now, and that's kind of what I'm going to stick with. I might try the fight a second time with a different build just to see how that turns out, but just for the purposes of showcasing, I'll stick with this unit. Now, Wormprint setup can be pretty important if you're insisting on running a unit that doesn't have blind resist. I'm running Silk Lens a Hand, which was a Wormprint that you could get from the Halloween event, and it grants 20% blind resist when it's not maximum unbound, which mine is not. I'm also running the Syndicate Mask, which is maximum unbound, and it's got a blind resist to 25%, which brings me to a grand total of 45% blindness resist, which is better than 0% blindness resist, which is why I chose those Wormprints. So that's my setup. Like I said, you could run with a different setup. Like, I'm going to summon... Kleiman is a 4-star unit that more people have, and you could run... If you're going to run a Kleiman, I don't have one here, but you're probably going to want to use, like I showed, the Elemental Void weapon, because that's going to make the fight go a lot quicker. And then, because you don't need blind resist from your Wormprints, I would just jack up its strength, its skill damage as much as possible, again, to make the fight go by faster. So if you have Plunder Pals is a good one. If you have Hitting the Books, that's a good one. I'm just trying to think of other Wormprints. There's other Wormprints. My personal preference would be to jack up your skill damage. So that's how I would go about that. And then for a dragon, again, Phantom, which is the free dragon, strength boost dragon that came out a couple months ago, definitely a good option, in my opinion. And I've run the fight with this setup before. I ran the fight with Kleiman at a 5.3 tier dark weapon, and then 2 skill boost Wormprints as well as Phantom, and I didn't have any problem contributing to my team to clear content. So that's those are some suggestions. For those of you that are struggling to find a unit with blind resist, I was thinking, oh, you know what? I think Alex has blind resist as well. Let's see. That is not Alex. It looks a little like Alex, but it's not Alex. I felt like Alex was a blind or was a dark unit. Maybe she's not. Okay, so maybe Alex is a different type of unit, but I'm pretty sure that, oh, she's a 4-star. Excusez-moi. Okay, but you do get her free in the game. And I want to say, okay, she does have blindness resist 50%. So if you unlock enough mana circles, so she might be a good option if you haven't pulled any of the 4 stars from the gacha. That's probably be what I would go with if I had no good gacha options. So just as a little addition there. All right, so we've seen setup. We've talked about some of the hints and tips and tricks, and let's dive in now. And I will demonstrate a fight. And let's do it. Loading. All right. So let's see here. We've got a character with a void bow. I'm totally in on that. I can see a void blade on Yasu, and I didn't get to see Heinmold's weapons, but I'm perfectly fine with this team setup. Honestly, I tend not to be too picky about my team setup because I like to test things, and it's okay if you, like, I don't mind wiping, especially when I play with public groups. It's just par for course. Like, it doesn't bother me at all. All right, so let's, you're going to see that this fight is a lot about dodging. It's just a lot about that. So she's always got there's just a lot of AoEs dropping, as you can see. They're purple. I'm pretty sure that those ones were the blind the blind inflicting ones. I'm not sure. I would just avoid all the AoEs. That would be my advice to you. And I would avoid the red as well. Okay. The sooner that you can win, the better. I mean, that's in any fight, but the longer you let this fight go, I found it significantly more challenging earlier on. That's just my opinion. Sorry, I found it significantly more challenging the later the fight went. And it gets significantly more annoying as she keeps summoning these add-ons that you have to defeat as well. So, yeah. Oh, there we go. Yeah, a lot of rolling around. So, and it's hard to see sometimes because everybody's activating their dragons and... Okay. So you can see some of her attacks that she uses again and again. There's one where she rolls around the outside. You're going to want to stay far away from that. It's a really strong attack. It's obviously purple. Oh, goodness me. All right, so, and just a lot of AoEs drop. So keep away from those. I mean, I find that standing around a little bit further out from the fight, if you can, and if you have a distance character that attacks from the distance, it allows you to... No, get out of there. Okay. It allows you to see a little bit better when everybody's flooding the screen with their different abilities and things like that. Also, my next piece of advice would be to try to stand behind her so she doesn't charge you. But yeah, so, like, there you go. You can see the fight. I don't find it to be too difficult. I cleared it on my first go. I think then, obviously, I have strong units, I have strong weapons, etc., etc. I'll do a demonstration next with Kleinman. But I think, as long as you're following as long as you're kind of following what you need to have in terms of equipment, which is making sure you either have the void weapon or you have, a 5.3 tier elemental. I haven't tested it with a 5.2 tier non-elemental weapon. I don't know if that would do enough damage. I did test out a Nefaria build earlier with her 5.2 tier bow, and it wasn't doing enough damage to be effective enough for me to want to kind of put that in a group, just because I didn't feel like I was contributing enough. But, I mean, anything's doable. It's just what your group is willing to do, especially if you're doing public groups. But if you're doing it with a Discord team, I mean, I'm sure you could run meme groups and different things like that. But, all right, so I'm going to try this build now. And so I'm going with the 5.3 tier dark weapon, Kleinman, and the the non-gotcha dragon, the free dragon, which is Phantom. All right, so let's join up here. I'm also wearing I really liked the epithet that they gave away for this fight. I'm just going to wait for it to load here so I can show it off. But yeah, so it's the Saint Surmounter. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great. So, just really cute little epithet. I love collecting epithets. That's one of the things that they did in this game that I thought was really cool. That they had little epithets and stuff to kind of strive for. It's a good way to create like a goal system that didn't involve PvP. So I was all for it. Okay, waiting for the other players. Let's go. I hope that they release this Void version of Jeanne d'Arc in the gacha. That would make me super happy. All right. Okay, so... don't get cocky. Oh, no, stay away. So Kleinman definitely doesn't have the survivability that that Veronica has, as far as... obviously, because I haven't upgraded him as much. He's not max mono-circles. He's only 40. So, I mean, I have to be more careful about dodging with him 100% because he really can't take the hits that Veronica can, which means I have to make sure I'm staying out of the AoEs, which again, my advice to you would be stand as far back as you can, without your attacks not being able to reach, and try to not go in front of her unless you have to. it's not, like, again, it's not, I don't find that I found that the level of difficulty and the learning curve for this fight was significantly lower than Void Agony. Void Agony took me a couple times to get the hang of and just to get the rhythm, to know where to stand. You got to dodge there was stuff there that you just had to dodge, like you really didn't have a choice. So you can see, though, here, with the climb and setup, with my Phantom Dragon in use, it didn't, like, you can totally do it with this setup. It's not hard at all. And obviously you need to have decent team members that are, kind of have a decent handle on the fight, but totally doable fight. Just, watch where you're standing, make sure you're avoiding the AoEs. This fight didn't have any, like, insta-kill mechanic to it that I found that existed in Void Agony. Is just about being fast, being quick with your rolls, staying out of the AoEs, not getting blindness inflicted on you, which makes you pretty much useless as far as damage dealing. This is a fight that I think can be done by a lot of different kinds of units. That's it for the Void battle, the new Void Jeanne d'Arc Void battle. If you have any questions that I didn't answer, or you want to suggest a team, composition or anything else that I can help with, please leave it in the comments. And as always, I'll be super active down there and answering any questions and helping in any way I can. Other than that, thanks for watching, guys. Talk to you soon.